right. There we go. Hello, YouTube.
And my audio is good, Aaron. We're recording just fine on my end.
Yeah, I'll record as well. Check. I'm good. I can get us started.
All right.
Welcome to the Fifth and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. Josh is here. Johnny is here. We are back with another episode. It's episode 136. And let me just say this. We've got a lot of thoughts we're going to try to cram into an hour and however many extra minutes this show goes. I understand that the college football playoff came out on Sunday. I understand we're recording on a Thursday. I understand that you've probably heard the same take from a dozen people. And we're here to basically give the same take, but you just get different people yelling at a microphone. That's what we're here to do today. But before we get into all of that, Johnny, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Annoyed by all the damp weather because I'm 80 years old and already have aches and pains and lacking of cartilage in certain appendages. So let's just say that part's been a little rough, but otherwise good. I'm doing all right. Aaron and I had an awesome time up at the MAC championship game up in Detroit. And we had a little bit more fun after the game too.
Yeah, we're true sports sickos because we'll talk about this in a minute, but we got to cover the MAC championship. That was awesome. And then we're driving through Detroit, we're there early, getting set up for the game. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if the Detroit Pistons are in town today. And sure enough, they were playing Johnny's Cleveland Cavaliers. So I watched my team go on a 17-game losing streak. And Johnny got the pleasure they lost again. So our losing streak is now legally allowed to vote and do other such activities. So
Aaron, don't you want to be a part of hey, remember the league's longest losing streak ever? I was a part of that. I went and saw that. Right. I witnessed it. History.
I mean, if you're going to be bad, be really bad. That's the lesson that's not even the lesson we were taught because of the way the Guardians and Reds wound up in the MLB thing. We'll talk about that later. Josh, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Doing all right. You guys got to come down here and deal with all of our existential dread because it is still 70 and sunny. And I need to feel Christmassy in order to justify all the Christmas stuff that we do down here because it is that Christmas season. I had to wear a sweater to a Christmas thing yesterday to keep up appearances, and I'm sweating through it like everyone else wearing their sweaters to fake through this, and we are dying. So I would love if Texas could just give us, I don't know, one day of normal winter weather.
Or Josh, just what do they wear in Australia during Christmas time?
I don't really care about them, I'll be honest.
I think you need to follow suit. They're used to it being 90 degrees, man. What do the Aussies wear?
I'm not following anything that prison island does.
Wow. I will say that entire country tries to kill you, whether it's the people, the land, the animals, the entire
Johnny,
country.
You know what it probably is? You know what it probably is, Johnny? It's probably a vest with knives faced inwards. That's probably what they wear when it's cold.
Wouldn't you? If you lived in that country? My gosh.
Just wear an Iron Maiden every day to work. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
otherwise I'm doing great. I'm wearing shorts. It's fine.
All right.
We're off to our usual start.
Josh, I will say I would love to come visit you at any time, obviously. But you get a lot of good bowl games. You get the Armed Forces Bowl is not too far away from you. The Frisco Bowl, that's good. So happy bowl season. That's upon us too.
Happy bowl season. We get, not to spoil it, but I could totally go see the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, that's true.
If I wasn't already... The one time I'm usually not in Texas is usually when the best things in Texas happen.
Right.
Bowls.
Well, you won't be the only one absent from that game, Josh.
Right.
Yeah. Before we dive into the college football playoff drama, I do want to give a quick disclaimer. Josh and Johnny mentioned this at the end of last week's episode. By the way, guys, thanks for covering last week's episode. Two things. The first is, yes, I was dead last week because I did a very dumb thing. I was setting up my schedule and I scheduled something for our normal recording time. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll text Josh and Johnny. We'll move because it's Thanksgiving week. We'll have some time the weekend to record, and then the weekend passed, and I was looking at my schedule, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? So I just completely scheduled myself out of the podcast last week. There were some rumors, reports perhaps, that it was because Ohio State lost to Michigan. I personally deny those claims, but I am a Buckeye fan, so you can do with that what you will. The second thing is, this is actually our last episode of 2023. We've been going hard for 136 episodes and pretty much weekly. And I'm really proud of that. And I appreciate all of your support and all the feedback that you've given us. Josh, Johnny, you guys said it last week. Really thankful for you guys. Our podcast is growing. So it's not that we're stopping the podcast. If anything, it's the opposite. We're actually giving ourselves a couple weeks to take a break and to kind of refocus and come back stronger and better than ever in 2024. So I wanted to give you all a heads up that this is our last episode of 2023, because we really haven't taken a break quite like this. We'll basically have like 3 weeks off. We're not going anywhere. We're still here. We're still going to be spewing dumb thoughts on Twitter and any other social media. So we're not disappearing off the face of the earth. Yeah. So wanted to give that disclaimer, but really I also just want to end by saying thank you for your support of the podcast this year. We're going to throw it on Instagram. Johnny talked about the chance that Johnny talked about the chance that Johnny and I had to go to the MAC championship. And really it's because of your support of this show and other things that we do and other things that we put out. Like, I'm going to put up an Instagram kind of roll of all the different places we've gone. And I was thinking about that today, and I was like, wow, we've been to some pretty wild places just in kind of this last year. So thank you. Really, it's because of your guys' support of this show. And I really appreciate it. Now, drama. The college football playoff. I don't really need to give you the background, because if you're listening to a sports show, you probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on. But in case you have been living in a cave for the last 3 weeks, which we do, this is a cave-friendly show. Number 1, Michigan. Number 2, Washington. Done. Undefeated, easy, done. Check. No worries. Number 3, Texas. Texas got in, and there's not even a lot of controversy with them because of their win over Alabama on Sunday. It came down to I'm not going to say the numbers. It came down to Alabama and Florida State. And as you know,
how about this? Let's just say one of the things that when I saw the results of the night, my internal rankings was this: Michigan, Washington. Although if they had flipped for some reason because of the win,
sure,
over Oregon, I don't think anyone would have complained.
Yeah.
Texas, and then Florida State, or in my mind, probably Florida State to honor the undefeated. Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Texas. And my rationale was Alabama probably has the better victory, technically.
Sure.
However, they lost the head-to-head. And so if you're going to put them in, you have to include Texas. Or if
Josh, you left out there the quality loss.
The quality
I don't know why you said quality win before quality loss. I think Alabama has the better loss.
Alabama definitely has the better loss. It's a really good loss. It is a top tier loss. And so that was my mind. So I'm like, we either have, and I'm like, I could totally see Texas not being in it for some reason too. And them just throwing like, thankfully, Texas should be thankful that Alabama won, because I think there was a chance that, anyway, they would have been out regardless. But so that was my internal ranking going through the night. And this was the chaos situation. Not to give grace to the college football committee, who only watched football the night before. But I'm like, this is going to be
Josh,
this is the
I
chaos
don't think
theory.
they stayed up.
This is the chaos theory.
I think they watched the ACC championship game. Because because we heard reports of basically Florida State's undefeated and does not make the college football playoff. That's unprecedented for a Power 5 team that goes undefeated to just straight up miss the college football playoff. The committee put in Alabama over Florida State, apparently after much deliberation. We all, and we'll get into this, we all think that's a bad decision. It's dumb. I think we're probably in the majority of college football fans probably think that Florida State should have been in instead of Alabama. There are reports that the College Football Committee did, in fact, watch the ACC championship game between Florida State and Louisville. And to that, I give a sarcastic round of applause, because I'm convinced the college football playoff, Josh, you said it, I don't think they do watch college football until maybe the last night when the cameras are actually on them and they have to pretend like they know what they're doing. They watched Florida State with not their second string quarterback, who would have played in the playoff.
Right.
They watched Florida State with their third string quarterback, a freshman, I believe, and they won an ugly game against Louisville.
It wasn't pretty.
It was not pretty. It was pretty.
Unless you like defense.
Yeah.
That defense looked good.
Absolutely.
But I truly think that the committee watched that game and watched with a third string quarterback, and that altered their opinion of Florida State. But it doesn't matter because the second string quarterback is who would have played in the playoff. Here's the other thing. That second string quarterback is getting 4 weeks of practice to figure things out. So really, this conversation comes down to best versus most deserving. You hear this every year, and every year, the committee, it's been a balance, but when push comes to shove, the committee has picked the most deserving team. I think about the year that Cincinnati went undefeated. They absolutely deserved to be in the college football playoff. They deserved it. Were they the best four team? Were they one of the top 4 teams? Were they the best? No, I don't think so.
No way.
And that's not me taking anything away from Cincinnati. The point is, though, the trouble that occurs when you take the 4 best teams is the 4 best is so subjective. So subjective. I do think Alabama is better than Florida State. I think most people agree that Alabama would beat Florida State. And I understand why that's part of the argument. But I also would have, we literally sat here and told you, hey, I think Oregon beats Washington in the Pac-12. Oregon came in as a 10-point favorite, and Washington is the team that won. Florida State would be roughly a 10-point dog to Alabama. So me just thinking that a team is better than the other, that's great and all, but that's why the 4 best teams does not work. Because Florida State did everything in their power. They played a perfect season. 13-0 from a Power 5. You can make the comparisons to UCF. It doesn't make really sense to me. UCF was never promised to get into the college football playoff when they went undefeated because they were not in a Power 5 conference. Whether fair or not, there was no promise. Florida State was essentially guaranteed by precedent, by what the College Football Committee had done in the past, that if you go undefeated in a Power 5 conference, you're in, no questions asked. And unfortunately, because of an injury, that's not the case.
There was genuinely nothing
go ahead,
more.
Josh.
That's to say, there was genuinely nothing more. There's a reason why we as a collective society, and let's make this about society, because what else am I supposed to do? There's a reason that we collectively voted in 2014 to move away from computers determining theoretical outcomes.
We should go back to the computers.
And the idea was for humans to look at these games, watch all the games, and know holistically. One of the things that a computer can't do, I don't care what you see on Twitter or on that next AI, press release. Computers cannot infer and reason in the way that humans can. Humans can look at a bigger picture, and that's why they're cool and better than robots. And so the idea was to put humans in this and go, ideally, the humans should have gone in our minds, okay, we know that the current Florida State team that beat Louisville, bad. You know what? Not even bad. Mid. Like we said, great defense, and they still won the game. It wasn't a pretty game, but we don't have to have pretty games. A computer would have gone, cool, we're going to get them out. Ideally, a human should have gone, okay, well, they're with their third string. They're going to get their fourth string back. He'll have 4 weeks to prep. They were pretty decent with their second string. And all the precedent says, keep them in. Yeah, there we go. But for some reason, the bigger precedent was in place, which is at least one SEC school always gets represented.
Right.
Florida State has a massive fan base. Not as big as the Tide.
Yeah.
No, again, I don't want to. We have like 3 of the most winningest football teams in the playoffs right now. You have Michigan, you have Alabama, you have Texas. Like that's top 3 of the top 4. So like, I don't want to just call out Alabama for this, except I do because I'm angry at them. I'm also angry at Gus for not, holding down a 4th and goal from the 31-yard line, because that's really
right.
That's his fault. This would not be an issue.
Stupid Auburn.
As always.
Auburn ruined everything. Who would have thought in that moment?
It was the 10th anniversary of the Iron Bowl game, and you couldn't finish it.
We talked about this last week too. That stadium is built on an Indian burial ground because no stadium has the percentage number of abnormalities there. But I'll attack it more from a philosophical standpoint, because like Aaron said, you guys have heard all the arguments after the, like, listening to us. I like that I was able to digest it a little bit and just kind of think through why it made me so angry. Like, because I don't remember being that upset about something that had absolutely nothing to do with one of my teams in a long time. And it's because it spits in the face of why we like sports and competition. Mm-hmm. And one of the arguments that makes me so mad is everybody points to TCU last year getting blown out against Georgia. Well, first off, that was the national title game, not the semifinal.
They earned their slot.
That's Michigan's fault. If you want to be upset about it being a blowout in the national championship, why are you mad at TCU? They earned it, especially beating Michigan. But however, results in the playoff do not determine the worthiness of a team to be entered into it.
Correct.
That does not equate. They earned the opportunity to be there in the playoff. They earned it. Competition is all about having the opportunity. Florida State did absolutely everything that they could, and sports is about overcoming. How often do you hear next man up? How often it's about David and Goliath. It's about playing as a team, and it infuriates me that a group of people who, like Aaron said, I don't think watch all the games.
No,
and they don't, because there's too many current administrators on the committee. They're athletic directors. They can't watch the games. It's not even really their fault in the sense they don't have the time for that. Well, then why are they on there? I love that they have former coaches and athletes. I do love that. But let's also not pretend they're like, oh, well, if it's their team, they recuse themselves. Like, you still have bias. Get out of here. 13 people isn't nearly enough either. You need way more people in there. You need no current administrators. That is terrible that they have that. They definitely don't watch the games. They don't. It's just proven by their rankings. They make subjective guesses. Anyway, I'm getting off my line of thinking here. Sports is all about having that opportunity to play and prove yourself. And they took that away from Florida State. They took it away from them. And that makes me absolutely furious for them. That is why we play. Aaron, you mentioned Oregon, 10-point favorite this weekend. Washington not only won, they clearly outplayed Oregon in that game. Clearly. And that's the second time they beat them. And Washington had to beat them twice to earn the respect. But they had the chance to do that. And they took that away from Florida State. And that makes me mad. And the whole, I would have picked Alabama in a game. Sure. That means nothing. I picked Oregon last week.
Yep.
Do you know how many incorrect games everybody's picked ever? Everybody's wrong constantly. That's why we love it. We love it because we play the games in real life, not on paper. And they decided based on stats and paper and a third string quarterback that they were watching that they probably thought was the quarterback, because those guys are so old and have no idea what's going on and they're not actually watching the games. They probably thought he was going to be the starter in the playoff. They're not paying attention. It infuriated me. And as somebody who has had a serious injury and gotten knocked out of a season and has watched friends and other people get knocked out of a whole season like that, Jordan Travis after that just broke my heart for him and his statement saying that I wish I would have broken my leg earlier. I mean, the kid is blaming himself for the team not making the playoff.
Yeah, it's wild.
And that is just garbage. I mean, that's not true at all, but that just hurt. That hurt my heart a lot. Just his statement in that, and that what happened on the field just didn't matter as much as.
And that's why I'm frustrated for a variety of different reasons. One of them is because we've preached on this show, like college football is my favorite regular season because all the games matter. And then that was shoved right back in our face with a resounding,
they didn't.
No, they don't matter. Because if they mattered, Florida State's in the playoff.
Yep.
And look, Alabama, I would argue they're deserving of a playoff spot too. We've had this college football playoff, this 4-team system for 10 years. This is the first year that we've actually needed more than 4 teams. Like 8 would have actually been really nice this year, but it's a 1 in 10 thing. Like everyone's like, oh yay, the 12-team playoff will fix all of this. Well, maybe, but you're still debating on 4 versus 5, who gets a first round bye. And I'm telling you, as we get into this 12-team system, you're going to realize how big of a deal that first round bye really is. But that's with Florida State. You go 13-0. Alabama, look, I would have had Florida State 4, Alabama 5. And Alabama has a right to be upset, but the reality is, because their only loss is to a team that's in the playoff, but that's also true of Georgia, and that's also true of Ohio State. It's the wrong loss. And that's why, in my mind, it should be Florida State 4, Texas 5. Because, look, we're not debating 2 teams that are 11-1. One of these teams has a loss.
Exactly.
Florida State's schedule of record is in the top 5. It's not like we're talking about a UCF or a Cincinnati, a team from a non-Power 5 conference. And it's just, it gutted me. Florida State, what do you do? What more could you have done?
What do you tell your players?
How
did Mike Norvell talk to his team after
Crazy.
that? I don't know.
At the end of the day, they won the ACC championship game with their 3rd-string quarterback over a top 15 team by double digits. And yes, it was ugly, but that defense is great. Johnny, I know Alabama would be favored against Florida State, and most of the other teams, if not all, would have been favored over Florida State. That defense is elite. That would have at least kept them in the game. I don't think Florida State gets blown out of a playoff game.
Aaron, are we just forgetting what happened week 1?
Yeah.
What defense was the most effective at stopping probably the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels?
Yep.
Florida State. That second half defense of Florida State was lights out.
Yep.
It's so infuriating. Like, and that's what you said too. Like, and we can debate. I don't think Louisville's really a top 14 team, but whatever. They're ranked up there. And you could also look at it like, wow, that defense is so dominant that Louisville could not do anything. And that's with Florida State running the Wildcat on offense, which again, they wouldn't be doing in the playoff. It's so maddening. And it's such a double standard too.
Yep.
If you're going by looks, Alabama should have lost to Auburn the week before.
Yep.
The same Auburn team that lost by 21 to New Mexico State the week before. And they needed a prayer on 4th and 31. And I don't want to hear it's not a Hail Mary. Okay, it wasn't a Hail Mary, but it's because it was only open because Auburn were idiots.
Right.
They spied Jalen Milroe. What, you want him to run past the line of scrimmage. He'd already run past the line of scrimmage and thrown it twice anyway. That would have ended
20
the game.
plus yards to stop him.
Yep.
Yes.
Easy.
If you have
Yeah.
If you have 9 guys on the other side of the line of scrimmage, I would like to think you could get them on the ground in 31 yards. And you only single cover their best wide receiver. I don't know how the math even worked on that. I'd have to watch the play again. But it's just such a double standard. And we watch college sports especially. All sports are wild and random. But college sports are even more wild and random.
Mm-hmm.
We get outcomes every week that shock and astound us because they're mostly, Sam Hartman and Bo Nix aside, 18 to 22-year-olds that wildly fluctuate in their level of play. Who's to say that Michigan doesn't have just a horrible, horrible day, and Florida State plays them. Their defense is lights out. We already saw J.J. McCarthy throw 2 pick sixes last year. Who's to say Florida State can't win a 2017 semifinal?
Yep.
Like, it's so assumptive, which makes it very arrogant and prideful in that judgment to me as well, of I know better than the results that actually happened on the field. Like, I know better than them.
And here's the thing, too. Now Florida State is playing in the Orange Bowl against Georgia. The difference right now between Florida State and some of those teams I've talked about, like that undefeated UCF team actually went and won their bowl game. And that's true of other such teams that have been undefeated. Yeah. Florida State, if you beat Georgia, not that you need my permission, but you have my permission to throw a parade, raise a championship banner, give yourself rings, because who's going to stop you? Like, I know UCF did it, and it's kind of corny, and we kind of joke about it, but look, UCF did all they could on their schedule. They won every single game. Mm-hmm. So who's to tell them no? I know they weren't in the right conference, and they've since moved. But Florida State was in the right conference. The College Football Committee did everything but give them a firm handshake agreement of like, you go undefeated, we're putting you in the playoff. If you're Florida State, go beat Georgia and then throw the parade. They can laugh at you, but who's going to look at you with a straight face and say, you don't deserve that? Because you did everything in your power to win these games and do exactly what you needed to do to get yourself in a position. And that's why, even though Alabama, maybe they are the better team, and we'll find out, because if that reaction by Michigan finding out that they're playing Alabama instead of Florida State tells you anything, it's that obviously they would have much rather played Florida State, even maybe with a healthy Jordan Travis. Big Bad Bama is rolling. They've won 11 in a row now, and a win over Georgia. Like, Alabama may very well win a national title. But that's not going to change my mind. Florida State deserved a spot, and they didn't get it, and it's unfortunate. And the College Football Committee let them down. They let the sport down, the sport that the games are supposed to matter. And the College Football Committee, plain and simple, failed.
What they did, and I want to point out also, my Wi-Fi cut out real quick, so you may have already said this, and I just didn't hear you. You said that technically Florida State was in the quote-unquote right conference. I think the committee just showed they are not in the right conference.
Right.
They are, and I think there's a reason. And it's funny and partially true to blame UCLA and USC and maybe Texas and Oklahoma for all of the chaos we see now. A lot of people in committees trying to get some extra cash. But the reality is Big Ten, SEC are the only guaranteed legitimate, in quotes, conferences according to the College Football Playoff Committee. And if I'm Florida State, I'm knocking everywhere I can.
Yep.
Because you've just delegitimized the entire, and they were trying to, and Florida State and Clemson and maybe Miami were hinting at this earlier in the year, and this might modify some things, but like clearly, and the issue is I don't even think they were the worst conference this year. It's not bad. Like, it wasn't bad. Like, there was nothing terrible about the ACC that would make me go, oh, this isn't a deserving, going undefeated in this conference is not deserving of an automatic bid. There's nothing about that. We always make fun of the Pac-12, but if one of those teams had ever won out prior, I would have had no issue with that. With the current Pac-12 situation. By the way, RIP, I was writing my senior thesis, finishing it up, and I'm like, what better way to chaotically write this paper and turn this thing in, and then to watch the last gasp of a chaotic Pac-12 officiating. We're gonna add 16 seconds onto the clock because it sounds fun. Type of game.
Josh, you're absolutely right though, because in the top 13, there's Florida State hanging out, and then the other 12 teams are either in the Big Ten or SEC currently, or they will be next year. So, yeah. I mean, the Pac-12's dying.
Big 12 and
the
ACC
might be, the college football playoff might have done them in. Because if Florida State gets in the playoff in the ACC, I don't think they think twice about it. And look, I know next year will be different because Florida State and, well, probably just Florida State in the ACC gets in next year. And so we'll see what that does. But, I mean.
Yeah, you're right. That being said, this is the last year of the 14 playoff.
Right.
So there's a chance where this might all become moot where.
That's the only reason the committee gets out of this a little bit.
Yep.
Like, people will forget about it a little bit, not Florida State fans,
right?
Not me, but the average person will forget about this just because I think the committee felt like they weren't going to have to deal with the repercussions as much compared to if they had to do this like 3 or 4 years ago. And now you said the dangerous precedent of this. Well, because it'll be 12, you're never going to have, I mean, it's literally in the contract that if you win the conference, I mean, the ACC is not named, but we all know who it's referencing.
Yep.
If you win your conference, you're going to be in. So it won't happen again, but that doesn't mean it wasn't garbage. So,
yeah, it's a good point. So, look, I understand why so many people are now yearning for next year in that 12-team playoff. And it's not, I don't have a great leg to stand on right now because clearly the 4-team playoff system failed this year. But I don't even think it's because a 4-team system would have been bad. Like Alabama misses out. The SEC misses out 1 year. I'm not losing any sleep over that. Tough.
I'm probably sleeping better.
You lost the wrong game.
Yeah.
Isn't that what college football's always been?
Yep.
Aaron, tell me in 2015, we're Buckeye fans. We have long memories. Was that 2015 Ohio State team that just had come off winning the national title, one of the 4 best in the country?
Yes. They were better than the team that won the title.
That.
They were better.
They would have beaten Alabama a second year in a row.
Yes.
But they lost the wrong game.
Yep.
They lost to Michigan State. That kept them out of the Big Ten title. Unfortunately, how the chips fell that year, there wasn't a space for them to back into the playoff. So they didn't get to participate. I don't remember Buckeye fans losing their minds about that because we understood.
We lost.
You lose the wrong game, man. And sometimes that sucks. And that would have hurt for Alabama to lose. I mean, what was it, week 2 against Texas? That's tough, man. That's real tough to have the game that you lose week 2 keep you out of the playoff. But it was the wrong game, and you did lose. So it's part of it. I actually was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, and I've said this before, I miss the BCS. And I know this year that would have been sticky a little bit, but in this scenario, Michigan's unbeaten, Washington's unbeaten, and Florida State's going to get left out because you're comparing unbeatens and they don't have their quarterback. And that would stink still for Florida State, but I think everyone would get it because we're comparing undefeateds. And so then you have to nitpick and, well, you don't have your starting quarterback. Well, I don't think a lot of people really would have lost their minds in that scenario because that just makes sense. You're nitpicking. And you can nitpick when they're all undefeated in that scenario. And then I just don't think Florida State's feeling as like they did this to us because, we're not in the SEC or Big Ten and they're not feeling as snubbed. And I miss the BCS anyway because everybody cared about the other bowl game.
Yep.
So
I'm with you there.
Well, anyway,
on that note, we do care about the other bowl games. If you are listening to this episode on Spotify, your favorite podcast platform, you can go sign up for our bowl game challenge. We do
I only care about 2 other.
Oh, be cut off.
I was gonna say I only care about 2 other bowl games, but
Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Pop-Tarts Bowl and Mayo Bowl. That's it.
That's right. But if you care about the Gasparilla Bowl or all these things, do the bowl challenge. I will say best of luck to you because the transfer portal is absolutely the Wild West. It has always been, but this year more than ever. I believe I saw a stat that there are 900 more players in the transfer portal right now than there were at this time last year. So it's crazy. Obviously, we could spend an entire show just talking about what quarterbacks are in the portal. That includes quarterback from Ohio State, Kyle McCord. That includes Washington State quarterback Cam Ward. That includes a host of players: Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma, Riley Leonard, Duke. Man, it is crazy, and we'll see where this all falls as we progress throughout the year. So we'll talk about that as it happens, but just know bowl games are here. Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, so we'll be keeping an eye on that to see who's even available to play in that game against the Missouri Tigers. So you do get some Big Ten SEC there. Yeah. Is there any other bowl games that stick out to you guys? I know most of the show is just kind of devoted to complaining about Florida State getting the raw end of things, but
it's hard, Aaron. It's hard just because you don't know who's like. I was really excited about the Sun Bowl.
Yeah.
At first, because Arizona and who's playing in that? Arizona and Notre Dame and Oregon State.
Yep,
I believe. But now with Oregon State's turnover,
DJU's
it's hard
gone.
to see the Beavers finding a way to win that game. Well, and even their star quarterback backup is gone.
Yes.
So third string. So all that is to say, with the advice on the bowl challenge is wait as long as you can to pick these games, because more people are entering the transfer portal daily. Most of them are out of the way, but yeah. I think honestly, most of the games I'm excited about are like the ones with the side fun things like the Pop-Tart Bowl, though, just because I know that's going to happen. And I'm kind of just staring around looking at teams like who's going to have most of their players playing in this game, like Oregon and Liberty. Bo Nix said he was going to play. So, I mean, I don't know if that'll be close, but at least we'll have a full strength Oregon team.
Yep. And by the way, congrats Liberty. That's one thing I did want to mention before we move on. Congrats Liberty. That's an undefeated Group of 5 team. First year in Conference USA, and they just run through it and go undefeated. So shout out to the Flames. Jamie Chadwell did a tremendous job there. Some really solid players there. Congratulations to the Miami Redhawks. Johnny and I talked about that. We went to the MAC championship game. They pulled an upset. Again, this is why we don't just pick the best teams just at face value, because that was an upset in a championship game. The Redhawks taking down a Toledo team that they lost to. Miami won with their backup quarterback. Who would have thought that you could win things with your backup quarterback? See Ohio State in 2014. That's why that's also a stupid argument. But anyways, so yeah, congrats to the Redhawks. Chuck Martin has done an excellent job at Miami. They are 11-2, and they're playing in the bowl game with a chance to win 12 games. They haven't won that many games since 2003, where some guy named Ben Roethlisberger was their quarterback. Josh knows that name, I think. So anyways, but yeah, shout out Boise State, all the Group of 5 champions.
I'm just sad for Kenny.
Yeah, that's... You got rid of Matt Canada.
Problem, right?
The good thing is you got rid of Matt Canada. The bad thing is Kenny ain't it.
You can continue.
Yeah. But speaking of the NFL, we'll move there because it's our picks of the week. So last week, Josh, you earned a point for the most correct playoff teams. You actually went 3 of 4, which is really impressive. So congrats on that achievement. So you got a point. I earned a point because I am excited to say that the Columbus Crew are in the MLS Cup final. So I got a point.
I've never been more happy to be wrong.
Yeah, I got a point for them being there.
Same.
I will get an additional point if they actually win against LAFC on Saturday. And I hope that happens. Johnny,
hey, can I do a quick? Do we have time for a quick straight to jail?
Oh, we always have time for straight to jail, Josh.
The ticketing process? You're going to throw Ticketmaster in jail?
Yeah.
I love throwing them in jail. It's one of my favorite activities other than throwing who's the other one that we throw in jail all the time? I don't remember.
NCAA.
Yes, yeah, probably. Yeah, Mark Hammett. But I just want to throw Ticketmaster in jail, and I would like to throw every scalper and every bot.
Amen.
Because it looks like NordDeck tried the first time to keep things private and something external got into it with the code. Long story short, tickets that were supposed to be about $120 to $140, which is not bad for a championship game. Obviously, you had to be part of that.
I was about to pay them.
I'm like, that's totally reasonable. Genuinely, in Columbus all day. I'll spend money on the flights to get up there. And then by the time everything happens, it was like $650 for the cheapest ones. Which then turns this into a Super Bowl where only rich donors get in and no one actually cares and the environment's terrible. And the MLS feels like it's one of the last sports that really doesn't to the same degree have that issue. Except for this year, they do now. So straight to jail, everyone. Yeah. Honestly, everyone who's rich. Also.
Yep.
No, Josh, I mean, I was literally like waiting to have my turn to buy the tickets. And the problem is like the Crew aren't running it, even though they're hosting it. It's MLS. So they screwed it up, and they're the ones handing most of their tickets to sponsors, which is also why part of the price increase, besides the bots, is also just they're giving less tickets than they should to the Crew.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously supply and demand issue. And because it's only it's only like a 22,000 seat stadium.
I was gonna say this is not like an Astrodome. Like these are intimate environments.
But we're not
designed for.
I'll be surprised if it's good environment. I'll be surprised if it's a good environment. But then I'm like, that makes me mad, because then why do the Crew even care about hosting? Like, what's the point of like, hey, you get to host the final, and it's like, but no one gets to go. Even your fans there. And it's like, what? What's the point of that?
For all they care.
Like, it might as well be in Dallas. Like, it's so dumb. I hated that. That made me mad. I was trying to go to the game, but yeah, I can't afford $500 tickets. So, but that's the problem. That's why like the Super Bowl environment always sucks, because the average fan can't get there. So that was just disappointing. I mean, it's right down the road. I was hoping to go to the game. I'll live. I'll be fine. Go Crew. I hope Aaron gets another point.
Yep. I do too. Hope the Crew get that third star on the crest, if you will. So with all that being said, our current scoreboard reads myself with 68. Josh with 66 is in second place now. Johnny with 65.
I do know. I told Johnny last week I can only rise in the polls when I pick college football. For some reason, that's like my best one. So,
yeah. Well, this week, it's been a minute since we've actually picked the NFL, and there's a pretty intriguing matchup this week. It is the Lions versus the Bears. No, I'm just kidding. It is the Eagles versus the Cowboys. You're welcome to pick the Lions Bears if you so choose. But yeah, we got Lions. Dang it. Now it's stuck in my head. We have Cowboys Eagles round 2. So the Philadelphia Eagles enter this game at 10-2. The Dallas Cowboys enter this game at 9-3. So potential that these two teams, if the Cowboys in fact win, could have the exact record and be tied for first in the NFC. I'm actually going to do something a little crazy, and I'm going to pick the Cowboys. And it's only because the Eagles have played a bunch of close games. I think one of these close games they're actually going to lose. But I think the Cowboys are going to do this thing that they do every year, where at some point in the season, they have people absolutely convinced that they're the best thing the NFL has to offer. They're going to go on this deep playoff run. So this is the time of year, ladies and gentlemen, where the Dallas Cowboys win a huge game. Dak Prescott throws for 500 yards and doesn't turn the ball over 7 times, and they get everyone pumped, and everyone's saying this is the Cowboys' year. And then in like 2 or 3 weeks, just all crumbles down into playoffs. So I've got the Cowboys.
I would normally go with you, Aaron. But see, the Cowboys have already had 2 lights out games like that this year. True. Once against the Giants and another one against Washington.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And so they're done. They've done it. I've started them. Last time I started Prescott because I forgot, and it worked out.
Yeah, you absolutely destroyed me in fantasy football. I mean, that was unbelievable.
I was the all-time points leader. You also, that was a good week. You also did not matter. There was quite a few empty slots.
Yeah,
it wouldn't have mattered. Went absolutely lights out. But this time, no, the Cowboys have done it. I don't know if I'm going to bench Prescott for Mahomes, because Mahomes is at Buffalo. No, they're hosting Buffalo.
Well, but receivers can't catch.
I know I can go out there and probably be a better receiver at this point, and I'm not joking. And then I would just immediately get pulverized. Can you guys hear me still? Am I coming through clearly?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, sorry. The video started failing on my side. I'll start over. That being said, I'm going Eagles. I'm going brotherly shove as long as Dictator Godell will allow it.
Yep.
I was listening to the podcast on that, and Jason was not terribly bothered. He's like, it's not my job to be bothered by it. For QB sneaks, they're like 93% success rate for their QB sneaks normally. So he's like, we'll pretty much be fine either way. That being said, Goodell, please let him have a good time. Keep the brotherly shove. It only works. It only works because of that. It only works because everybody there is massive.
Yep.
Jalen
They're all
Hurts
perfectly
is a power
designed for
lifter.
it.
It's no one else is going to do it.
Yeah. Why are we punishing the Eagles for just being really good at football?
But yeah,
that
give me
makes
Eagles.
no sense.
Yeah. Yep. They were born.
No, the Eagles. The Eagles are clearly one of the most dominant. Yeah,
every one of those players were born for this. I will also take the Eagles, much for the same reasons Aaron actually mentioned. Everybody's saying, "Oh, they're already doing it, Aaron." The Cowboys. Yep. Dak Prescott. He's the second best quarterback in the league. Yep. He can do no wrong. Look at how dominant they are. And I ask every time, I'm like, against who? Washington, the Giants. I mean, they're playing garbage. And that's, you know what? That's great. Because in the NFL, a lot of good teams lose to a lot of bad teams. Good job, Dallas. You beat the teams you should. Who have they beaten on their schedule that they were an underdog against? And I know there's not a lot of teams you'd hypothetically be an underdog against, but the 49ers killed them again already this year. Philly won the first time against them. They did lose to the Cardinals. Whenever Dallas actually faces a good team, they lose. So I can't pick them based on principle because I'm so sick and tired of doing this game every year of selective amnesia with the Cowboys where everybody in the media likes to pretend that they've never seen the Cowboys do this before. And this year's different. And they're going to figure it out and they're going to go to the Super Bowl. Not a chance. Not a chance. They will never make the Super Bowl. Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. They just got blown out by the 49ers. Yeah. Elite teams bounce back from blowouts. Philly, they're going to win.
This is what's going to happen. Dallas is going to win this game. Then they go at Buffalo. They'll find a way. Then they go at Miami. They'll find a way. And the buzz will be at an all-time high. Oh. And then they're going to host Detroit on Saturday, December 30th. And the Lions will be the downfall of the Dallas Cowboys. And then you know what? The Cowboys will go to Washington and they'll just lose for no apparent reason because the downside has happened and then they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. I'm calling it right now.
Mm-hmm. There's no way they're beating the Philly, Miami, and Buffalo in a row. Not a chance.
Johnny, would you bet all of your points that does not happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd bet all of them. All of them. What do I get if I'm right?
Miami doesn't have it in them. Miami's not gonna take them.
Miami's literally the Dallas Cowboys in the AFC.
Yeah,
they're literally the same team. I don't even know who will win that game.
They're exciting.
Because they just kill everyone who's bad and they lose to anyone who's good. Miami's the exact same team as the Dallas Cowboys with better weapons. Miami just has better weapons. Dallas has a better defense.
And right now, a less insufferable fan base. I will just say as a side note, I'm not terribly looking forward to the college football playoffs for another reason. And this is a reason why I'll just say, spoiler alert, I'm taking Washington all the way. Not to get back to the original discussion.
Beautiful.
I hope so, Josh.
Fan base. We have Michigan, we have Alabama, we have Texas, three of the most insufferable fan bases in football, period. And it's gonna be just an absolute crap show. It's not gonna be a fun time. It's gonna be jump on those message boards, people. Gonna be a lot of great content on those.
Yeah, I guess we kind of do need to pick the college football playoff too. I didn't think about this because it is our last episode of 2023. So, Josh, you've got Washington. Johnny, who are you picking to win it all?
Who I want or who will win it?
Give us both.
Alabama will win. I want Washington. But really, the winner of Texas-Washington I'm cheering for.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who it is.
Sure.
Truly. Oh, truly. No, I've never wanted both teams to lose all of their players to the transfer portal more than Michigan, Alabama.
Yeah, Josh over here rooting for the Meteor.
Abomination.
I'm also the same. I think Alabama is going to do it. They're just playing so well right now, and I think they find a way. Michigan's not going to outscore Alabama, which really helps Jalen Milroe because he can be mistake prone, but he can also be really, really sharp. And I think we're going to get the really sharp version of Jalen Milroe with all that time to practice. Look, at the end of the day, you give Nick Saban 3-4 weeks to practice for a specific team. Good luck. Like JJ McCarthy has been really good. And he has impressed at every step of the way, even though Michigan hasn't necessarily always asked him, or have rarely asked him this year, to really go out and throw the ball 30 times. That just hasn't happened. He's, I think, been under 200 yards passing in each of the last 4 games. But he's done exactly what's been needed for Michigan to get the job done. I think against Alabama, he's going to actually have to make some plays, and that could be tricky with guys like Dallas Turner and Kool-Aid McKinstry on that defense. We'll see. We'll see. I am kind of rooting for Michigan to just beat the brakes off of Alabama, which is not going to happen. But I'm rooting for it just to say, because all these people are going to be like, "Oh, Alabama deserved this." Michigan just beat them by 30, and then we can laugh at Alabama and say, "Florida State, I'm so sorry."
Don't decide whether they were supposed to be in or not.
I totally agree. With that said, Michigan beat them by 30, so we can laugh at Alabama. But I do have Alabama winning it all. I will be rooting for Washington, is probably my favorite team there. So that's NFL, that's college football playoff picks. I will say, going back to the Cowboys, that game against the Lions, it's on December 30th. It's a Monday night game being played on a Saturday. I have a flight that I have to get up for at like 2:30 in the morning, and I know I should go to sleep at like 8 o'clock and not watch the Lions game that Saturday. But I will probably just watch the Lions game and I'll sleep when I'm dead. That's what I'm thinking. So, yeah. All right. It's what we're following. The last what we're following for 2023. I unfortunately don't have that exciting of a story, but I do have some MLB, some Major League Baseball nuggets. The first one is we just had the draft lottery for the 2024 Major League Baseball draft. The Athletics were horrible this year. The Kansas City Royals were horrible this year. They had the best percentage chance to get the first pick. Instead, the Cleveland Guardians earned the first pick. Say what you want about Cleveland sports. If there's one thing that Cleveland teams can do, dang it, they can win a draft lottery. And they've done it again, the Guardians with the first pick. And then out of nowhere, the Cincinnati Reds, with the 14th best odds to get the first pick, end up with pick number 2. So Cleveland and Cincinnati, back-to-back picks to start the Major League Baseball draft. I'll take it. The Reds need as much young talent as they can get their hands on, because they're never going to pay anyone. I know they made some moves in free agency. There were some reports that they were in on some free agents. It didn't really materialize. They're trying to potentially get Jeimer Candelario, which to me, I don't like. Why would you sign him when you have a perfectly good infield now? The thought is that maybe Jonathan India would be on the trade block, and I assume they'd want to trade him for Candelario because of salary reasons, but that just seems super stupid to me. So no offense, Jeimer, but I don't want you. I'd rather have Jonathan India. Anyways, so that's nugget number 1. Nugget number 2 is the Juan Soto trade went through. So the Padres are sending Juan Soto to the New York Yankees. So that'll be really interesting. You've got Aaron Judge and Juan Soto back-to-back in that lineup, which is perfect. They'll both get on base. Anthony Rizzo will come up to the plate and promptly ground into a 6-5 5-6-3 double play, whatever that looks like. So that'll be fun. Good for the Yankees. Giancarlo Stanton will play like 20 games because he's healthy. It's obviously a big deal. That's a big signing for the Yankees, but it doesn't change the fact that that team is old and they will not be healthy and they will struggle to make the playoffs again in a really, really good division. So that's the other nugget. And I think I had a third nugget. Oh yeah, Shohei Ohtani. We don't know anything, but the Dodgers are in on Ohtani. It sounds like maybe the Blue Jays are in, the Angels, and the Giants. That appears to be the final 4 landing spots for Shohei Ohtani. Maybe it'll be decided when we come back. Maybe not.
Who knows? But you know what I do know? I got a new sandwich theory.
Ooh.
Found this the other day. And Johnny, I know you're shaking your head right now.
Johnny, give him a chance, man.
One of the things that I've learned in academia is things like this are important enough to continue the conversation on. So I'm going to give you a brand new theory that I haven't heard yet before. I'm going to run it by you guys, and we're going to figure it out together.
Do you ascribe by this theory, Josh?
This is why we have the conversation, is to determine via internal validity of the argument and external acceptance of the argument whether or not it actually has legs to stand on. This is a holistic, conversational, perspectival view of what is a sandwich. And we're not going to do sandwich salad soup. That's a lot. One of the things I also want to make sure we do is just establish, first off, what are we doing with the starch? So this new theory I found is that the amount of starch and where the starch is determines whether or not it is a sandwich or something else. They're calling it the cube rule, the cube rule of food. So if you have just starch on the bottom, it's toast. If you have starch top and bottom, sandwich, normal. If it is connected, if there's starch on technically three sides, if you will, or a connected bun, then it becomes a taco. If it is all the way through, completely surrounded but open on both ends, not a burrito, sushi, which I think is where the theory falls apart. I would probably go back to burrito. I'd probably go back to burrito, frankly, if I'm modifying this theory.
Yeah, sure.
If it's closed at...
Well, I guess that would be the difference between burrito and sushi, right? Burrito would be closed, sushi would be open on the ends.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, I think the potential issue is with the starch. Starch is very broad. Is potato not a starch?
You know it's broad. That's why we're
exactly, because you could use
I don't give a crap about
the
bread. I don't care. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So then we have things like calzone, which is generally speaking something that is surrounded by starch on all sides except for the top. Generally speaking, let me check. Oh, sorry, quiche. Technically, that's a quiche. A quiche is something that is surrounded by starches and then open at the top.
Okay.
So
I like sushi better, but that's fine.
A quiche is sushi's open on both ends. Sushi's open on both ends, though. Rice, and then sushi.
Not the outermost part of the thing, though. Right? Like, isn't it usually wrapped in like seaweed on the outside?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, but if we're talking about sandwich in a way to describe what kind of sandwich it is, I just think the sushi shape, it's just a fun word to say. I'd rather say sushi than quiche. That's just kind of where I'm at on this, but.
All right. What did you last hear?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
just keep going.
Yeah, I don't think we missed anything.
Oh, good. Okay. Man, I cannot see you guys, unfortunately. Like, that's how bad the video is coming through. So I'm going to figure out a fix for next week. Or no, it doesn't have to matter, actually.
Yeah, we got some time.
But regardless. Yeah. So because sushi was originally the rice, I'm actually going back on the sushi train. And sushi is closed at one end, open on the others. Or sorry, no, sushi's open on both ends. Then we have a quiche, which is only open on one end.
Oh.
So a quiche is a quiche. And then we have something like a little pita pockets, a little gyro. That's a quiche. Ice cream on a cone. That's a quiche.
There it is. That's the one I was waiting on.
Yep.
Absolutely not.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely not.
By the rule I just established, Johnny, you are too...
The cone's also not closed at the bottom. It's not closed.
Technically,
there's always an opening
then it goes
at the
back
bottom,
to sushi.
Josh.
Then it goes back to sushi. All right, you want to play this game? Let's play this game.
I am more comfortable with ice cream being sushi.
No, Johnny. No, Johnny. What about
I'm
a cake
more
cone?
comfortable with it being sushi than a quiche.
You have a cake cone that's open at the ends? You monster.
You get a cake cone? You're the monster.
I'm not saying
cones.
I did. I haven't gotten a cake cone in years because I'm an adult with real adult money, and I'll spend the extra $1 for a waffle cone because I've earned it.
Getting a waffle cone? How dare you?
You know what? But I'm gonna yell at my 3-year-old child because they ordered a cake cone and go, "No, you didn't get that." Like, no,
I'm not yelling at them because I'm not allowing them to buy a cake cone. They're getting a waffle cone. Dang it! Or one of those baseball helmets.
Quiche.
Amazing.
Finally, you have a calzone, which is closed on all ends. So ravioli is a calzone. Pop-Tart, calzone. Sweet calzone. Starch.
Pop-Tart being a sweet calzone, that's perfect.
That is I don't disagree.
That's
with
pretty
that
good.
One.
See, this is where it starts coming together. Twinkie, just a cake calzone.
So pizza is toast.
Pizza would be toast.
Because that actually, I feel like that is fine too.
Pizza's toast.
Yeah.
Flatbreads and toast. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not closed.
I can get behind that. I really can.
That's actually thank you, Aaron.
Yep.
Corn dog, calzone. Easy.
Yeah.
Hot dog.
Wouldn't it be a kebab?
Taco. Oh, so the addition of a stick, that's interesting. I don't actually hate that, but a kebab is usually considered open. I can remove the stick from a corn dog and it doesn't cease to be a corn dog. But I can remove all the ingredients.
Yeah, but that would be
from
wrong.
The stick,
that
and
would be the wrong way to eat it.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that I think you're a good person. I am saying that it doesn't cease. It doesn't cease. The stick does not a corn dog make.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because there's exists things at the grocery store right now called mini corn dogs.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I'm gonna go buy some of those now. We're talking about this.
Fried chicken. It's a starch all around. It's a calzone.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
I'm just being consistent with the rules here. Yep.
Oh,
Johnny, your favorite food is calzones.
No,
Colonel
it's
Sanders
not.
Calzones. Yeah, it is.
No.
So sorry.
Nope.
Now,
No.
final rule.
Because it occurs in the natural world. That's not, no.
Yeah.
Nope.
The natural world can represent, like, we have to have examples in nature to start categorizing these things. This is the whole, like, taxological process, like zoological stuff. See,
I draw the line at fried chicken.
See, I'm about to go one line further. Unfortunately,
that's impossible.
We're about to go to cake, because anything that is stacks of starches with stuff in between, now we're a cake layer at the very least. Now, unless you want to say that 2 layers is simply an icing sandwich with cake bread, which I don't think you want to.
I actually could live with that.
All right. And then we get to 3 layers and it has to be its own thing. Now or it's a multi-layered sandwich. But then what do you do with lasagna? Lasagna is back to being like a beef cake. It's a savory cake because it's multiple layers of multiple layers of starch. So there it is. That's my theory. I think this actually went a lot better than I thought. Johnny only got angry at like 2 or 3 things. He actually agreed with me on 1 or 2 things.
Yeah.
So I feel like this theory has some merits. I need to double check on that sushi stuff though. I feel like the vernacular might need some tweaking, but the idea of it being, because sushi just has a specific like vibe to it, and I think burrito might actually be a little bit more generic. That could work.
Yeah. What about cereal? That's kind of an odd one, but because that's really that's not really anything because it's just starch basically.
Well, this is theoretically because it's a starch in a liquid. We might go to soup.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of, but I get it.
So which is why we're just staying on the sandwich category.
Yeah, I get it.
We could go into the whole thing of like,
Yeah.
So there it is. That's my theory.
I like it.
I like this one.
This
is the strongest theory I've seen so far.
No, it sucks. Fried chicken cannot be a calzone.
No, it is now. It is 100%.
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Chicken fried steak, calzone.
I will foment revolution if this is accepted in the public square.
Then I will counter foment. I've seen Les Mis too. I know how to stack things on top of each other and block off a city street.
But have you watched Napoleon, Josh?
Not yet.
Also,
is it good?
It's not very good.
I've heard that.
It wasn't horrible. It wasn't great.
I've heard that the history guys were like, not all of this is accurate, and the stuff they
I didn't
added
expect
was
it to
unnecessary.
Be. Yeah, I didn't really expect it to be. It's just about him and his wife's relationship.
Oh, I want conquering. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. There's not enough conquering.
I want this to be the French version of like a Roman movie. I want this to be the French version of like Gladiator or something.
Actually, I would argue it was very Roman in the fact that it focused more on the relationships of the emperor than the actual fighting. But anyway, we don't have to talk about the French Empire and Napoleon on this podcast, but maybe another day. What I'm following this week, and this is actually a pretty old one, but it just made me happy. And there were a lot of things in the sports world that kind of made me sad the last couple of weeks. And it was just during a game. NBA's really in full swing now. Seems like the in-season tournament's starting to gather some steam, which is cool. But during one of the games, they love doing interviews with random people. The NBA is like way more laid back than almost any other sport besides maybe baseball, but the NBA embraces it. And there was just this story about the New York Knicks starting center Mitchell Robinson, and how like he invited his old high school basketball coach to move in with him. So he's basically his roommate right now, which is just pretty cool. And then they shared a little bit more backstory of it. And apparently his coach's wife had been like super sick leading up to this. They don't say with what. And Mitchell was just visiting like every single day, like his coach and his wife, like in the hospital. And then he told his coach, like, hey, coach, like, don't, like, after she died, like, don't stay here, come move in with me. And that was just like, that's simple, but it's like, that was so sweet. Like, we need more of that on our timelines and social media. We need more of that type of stuff. So hats off to Mitchell Robinson. Like, that is a super awesome gesture and speaks to what sports can do in people's lives and why coaches can be incredibly impactful and meaningful, because I'm sure that is a response from Mitchell out of the outpouring that he received from his coach while he was in high school. So that was a really sweet story. I loved like listening and reading that. That made me smile.
Yeah, no question. Johnny, that's a good way to wrap up this episode. Something wholesome at the very end here. So yeah, that wraps us up for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to recording more episodes in 2024. Enjoy the rest of your year. Enjoy Christmas. Enjoy anything else going on. Enjoy bowl games, NBA, whatever you got going on. As always, we thank you for your support. If you haven't already, please consider leaving a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us get the show out to more people, which is kind of the goal here. So appreciate you doing that. Well, we're on social media. We're at Fifth and Goal Sports just about everywhere except Twitter, because yes, it's called Twitter. We're at Fifth Goal Sports there, but if you look up Fifth and Goal, you'll find us. Otherwise, for myself, for Josh and Johnny, have a good rest of your year. We'll see you in 2024.